I've spent my entire life studying wealth, not just how to build it, but what quietly destroys it. And after 99 years on this planet, I can tell you something with absolute certainty. Most people are not broke because they don't earn enough money. They're broke because they keep buying the wrong things. It's that simple, and it's exactly that complicated. Because the wrong things don't look wrong at the start. They look normal. Everyone around you is buying them. Society tells you that you should buy them. These purchases even make you feel good for a little while. But they are quietly destroying your wealth, slowly, year after year, like termites eating away at the foundations of a house. You don't see the damage until it's far too late. Warren and I spent decades talking about this, looking at why intelligent people end up poor, why doctors, lawyers, engineers, people with good salaries and good degrees work a lifetime and die with nothing to show for it. And we reached some very clear conclusions. It's not lack of income. It's systematic waste, concentrated in a few specific categories. In fact, most people are bleeding wealth through 5 types of purchases they make over and over again. Today I'm going to talk about those 5 things that almost everyone buys without thinking twice. 5 things that look harmless, maybe even necessary. But if you want to get rich, properly rich, you need to stop buying them immediately. And I'm not talking about the odd little luxury here and there. I'm talking about wealth killers. Decisions that can cost you hundreds of thousands, even millions, over a lifetime. So let's start with the first one. The biggest destroyer of wealth I see in modern society. New cars. I know what you're thinking. Come on, Charlie. Everybody needs a car. How on earth does that destroy wealth? Well, let me be precise. It's not cars in general. It's brand new cars, bought straight from the dealership, that people tell themselves are some kind of investment. A new car is one of the worst financial decisions the average person makes. And yet millions of people make that decision every single year. They walk into a showroom, inhale that famous new car smell, sit in the leather, touch the screen, feel important for 10 minutes, and then they sign away a chunk of their financial freedom. Warren and I talked about this more times than I can count. He never bought a brand new car. I never bought a brand new car. And it's not because we're stingy. It's because we can do basic arithmetic. Here's the maths that ruins people. The moment you drive that car off the forecourt, it loses 10 to 20% of its value, instantly. You haven't even got it home yet, and you've already burnt thousands of pounds. Why? Because it's no longer new. It's now used, and the market punishes that difference brutally. Then, over the next 5 years, that same car will typically lose around 60% of its total value. So a 40,000 pounds car becomes a 16,000 pounds car. You've lost 24,000 pounds in value just for the privilege of owning something shiny. But it gets worse. Much worse. Because most people don't pay cash. They finance it. Now, you're not only losing money through depreciation, you're paying interest on something that is evaporating in value every month. That isn't just unwise. It's madness. But no one calls it madness because everyone else is doing the same thing. Let's do the full napkin maths. You buy a 40,000 pounds car and finance it over 5 years at, say, 5% interest. Your monthly payment is roughly £754. Over those 5 years, you'll hand over about £45,240 in total. At the end of that period, the car is worth maybe £16,000. So you've paid £45,000 plus to end up with an asset worth £16,000. You've effectively set fire to roughly £29,000. Now here's the part that should make you slightly sick. Those same £29,000, if invested instead at 10% annual return and left alone for 30 years, would grow to around £523,000. £500,000 from one single decision. The decision not to buy a brand new car. And of course, it's not just one car. Most people repeat this circus every 5 to 7 years. New car, new finance, new depreciation, same stupidity. Over a lifetime, this habit alone can easily vaporize millions in potential wealth. I never bought new. Not once. Warren didn't either. Not when we were poor. Certainly not after we got rich. We bought used cars. Boring, reliable, unfashionable, practical. We drove them until they basically fell apart. People think that's strange. They say, "Charlie, you're a billionaire. You could buy any car you want. Why are you driving this old thing?" And I say, because a car is transport. It takes me from point A to point B. A new car doesn't take me there any better than a used one. So why on earth would I burn money on it? That's the mindset shift you need. A car is not a status symbol. It's not a personality. It's not a trophy. It's a tool. A tool that loses value every day you own it and quietly drains your future. So, if you want to get rich, stop buying new cars. Buy a solid used car, 5 to 7 years old. Pay cash. Drive it for 10 years or more. And invest every pound you're not sending to the finance company. That one change, over time, will make you rich. Not overnight, but inevitably. The second thing you need to stop buying is a house that's far too expensive for your income. I'm not telling you never to buy a house. Owning your home can be a perfectly sensible financial decision if you do it properly. The problem is, most people don't. They stretch themselves right to the absolute limit of what the bank will lend them. They sign up for 30-year mortgages, and of course the banks are delighted. The bigger the loan, the more interest they collect. They don't care if you stay poor. They don't care if you never have any money left to invest. Here's how it works in practice. The bank looks at someone earning, say, £8,000 a month and says, "Good news, you're approved for a £400,000 house." And the person thinks, "Brilliant. I've been approved for £400,000, so that must be what I should spend." That is completely insane. Just because a bank is willing to lend you a number doesn't mean you should borrow it. Banks qualify you using ratios designed to maximize their profit, not your wealth. Let's do the rough numbers. A £400,000 house with 20% down means a mortgage of £320,000. At a very conservative 4% interest over 30 years, your monthly mortgage payment will be somewhere around £1,500. Add in property tax, insurance, service charges, repairs, maintenance. That easily creeps up to £2,000 or £2,500 a month. That's £24,000 to £30,000 a year just to keep a roof over your head. If you're earning roughly £8,000 a month, that means more than 30% of your income gone straight into housing before you've invested a single pound. And what's left over to actually build wealth? Almost nothing. You end up house rich and cash poor. On paper, you own something impressive. In reality, you're skint. Your money is locked up in bricks and mortar. You can't access it without selling the house or taking on even more debt. Warren bought his house in 1958 for about $31,500. He could have afforded something far grander, even back then. But he didn't need it. The house was comfortable, in a good area, perfectly adequate. Because he kept his housing costs low, he had surplus capital. Money he could put into businesses, into stocks, into assets that actually grow. That's how he built his wealth. Not by living in the biggest house he could get away with, but by living in a sensible one and investing the difference. We didn't live in the biggest homes we could technically qualify for. We lived in modest homes and let the extra money work for us. Here's my rule of thumb for housing. Your home should cost no more than about 2.5 to 3 times your annual income, ideally less. So if you're earning £8,000 a month, around £96,000 a year, you should be looking in the £250,000 to £300,000 range, not £400,000. Most people do the opposite. They buy at the maximum edge of what the bank approves. They lock themselves into a 30-year chain, and then they sit there wondering why they can never seem to get ahead financially. Your house is supposed to support your wealth building, not sabotage it. It should be a place to live, not an anchor that drags you under with payments and upkeep. Over 30 years, the difference between choosing a modest, sensible house and an overstretched dream home can easily be £1 million in your net worth. That is the real cost of buying too much house. Not just the price on the estate agent's window, but the investments you never make because you're too busy feeding the mortgage. So if you want to be rich, stop asking, what will the bank approve? Start asking, what can I buy that still lets me invest aggressively every single month? The house that impresses your neighbors today is often the exact house that keeps you working for decades longer than you needed to. The third thing you need to stop buying is brand new furniture and endless home decor. Most people don't think of furniture as a major expense, but it adds up frighteningly fast. A new sofa for $2,000. Dining table and chairs for $3,000. Bedroom set, a few more thousand. Then come the decorations. Pictures, rugs, lamps, mirrors, cushions, ornaments. Before you know it, you've dropped 20, 30, 40,000 furnishing a house. And for what? Exactly. Furniture is functional. You sit on it, eat at it, sleep on it. A brand new sofa does not support your backside any better than a well-kept used one. But people buy new because they want the house to look nice. They want to impress visitors. They want that glossy showroom feeling. And of course, the furniture shops are delighted to help, often with store credit at lovely high interest rates. So now you're not only buying depreciating items, you're paying interest on them as they lose value. That's compounded stupidity. Because make no mistake, furniture depreciates too. Not as violently as cars, but it still goes down, especially all this modern stuff that's not built to last a generation. There is absolutely no financial logic in furnishing an entire house in one weekend on a shop card. I've had the same pieces of furniture for decades. Some I bought used. Some I bought new. But I kept them because they still work. I've never understood this urge to constantly redecorate because some magazine or influencer says the style has changed. Let me put the maths on the table. Suppose you spend £30,000 furnishing a house with everything brand new. That's pretty normal for the middle class today. But if you'd bought good quality used furniture instead and spent, say, £10,000, you'd have saved £20,000. Now take that £20,000 and invest it. At 10% a year for 30 years, it grows to about £349,000. That's not pocket change. That's real wealth. That's the difference between retiring comfortably and working until you drop. All because you were willing to sit on a sofa someone else owned before you. Most people won't do it. They think used furniture is beneath them. They want everything brand new and perfect, and they pay a fortune for that privilege. If you want to be rich, stop buying brand new furniture sets. Buy used. Buy slowly. Buy only what you actually need. And funnel the savings into investments that grow instead of sofas that sag. Your furniture doesn't care whether it's making you wealthy, but your investment account does. The fourth thing people need to stop buying is the latest shiny technology and gadgets. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The newest iPhone every year. The latest laptop, even though the current one works perfectly well. Smart home devices, game consoles, tablets, wireless headphones. Every toy the tech companies can convince you that you need. But here's the truth. You don't need them. Not really. These are wants, not needs. And they're very expensive, wants that go out of date almost instantly. A new phone can easily cost £1,000 or more. Every year the marketing machine cranks up. New camera, new chip, new color, and millions of people queue up to buy one, even though their current phone still works just fine. Now look at the difference in behavior. If you upgrade your phone every single year, you're blowing about £1,000 a year. If you upgrade only every 2 years, that's roughly £500 a year on average. That's £500 saved each year. Over 40 years of adult life, that's £20,000 you didn't spend. But here's the important bit. If you invest that £500 every year at 10% for 40 years, you don't end up with £20,000. You end up with something in the region of £220,000, all from simply not chasing the latest phone every autumn. And phones are just one example. The same logic applies to laptops, tablets, TVs, headphones, all of it. The tech industry has done a brilliant job convincing people that they must have the very latest model to function in society. That's marketing, not mathematics. I don't own a smartphone. I have a simple old-fashioned phone. It does exactly what I need. It makes calls. That's it. Meanwhile, go and look up how many shares Warren and I have owned in Apple over the years. People think I'm outdated, out of touch. But here's the joke. My phone costs next to nothing. It never needs a software update. It doesn't distract me. It doesn't tempt me with apps, subscriptions, and nonsense. It just works. Now, I'm not telling you to go and buy a brick phone. I understand smartphones are genuinely useful for most people. But you do not need the latest flagship model every time. You can keep a phone for 4 or 5 years instead of 2. You can buy last year's model at a discount. You can look after your devices so they actually last. Most people don't upgrade because their tech is broken. They upgrade because they're bored. Because they want the new features. Because they want to feel up to date. Because the adverts told them their old device is now embarrassing. Rich people see through that. They use technology as a tool, not as a costume. They squeeze every bit of value out of a device before replacing it. They're not chasing the latest gadget. They're chasing returns on capital. Every pound you don't throw at gadgets is a pound that can compound into real wealth over time. And over a lifetime, those pounds don't just add up. They multiply. Technology is supposed to make your life easier and more productive. But if your tech habits are making you poorer, then you're not the customer. You're the product. You're serving the companies selling to you, not the other way around. Stop buying the latest tech just because it's new. It's one of the biggest wealth destroyers in the modern world. And now we come to the fifth and final thing. Luxury experiences you cannot actually afford. I'm talking about expensive holidays, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, fancy restaurants, VIP concert tickets, luxury cruises. All the experiences people justify with the same tired line. You only live once. I'm creating memories. Look, I'm not against experiences. I'm not telling you never to enjoy your life. But there is a very big difference between enjoying life within your means and burning money you don't have on luxuries you can't afford. Most people don't make that distinction. They see their friends posting holiday photos on social media, feel like they're missing out, and then book an expensive trip they have no business paying for. A luxury holiday can easily cost £5,000, £10,000, even £15,000 for a single week. 1 week of your life. Then it's gone. And what are you left with? Some photos, a few stories, and a nice fat credit card bill. Here's what drives me mad. People will happily spend £10,000 on a holiday and then tell me they can't afford to invest. They'll say, I don't have money for retirement, while they're drinking cocktails on a cruise ship. Their priorities are upside down. They're choosing temporary pleasure over permanent security. A week of luxury instead of years of financial freedom. If you can't pay for it outright and still hit your investing goals, you can't afford it. It's that simple. You want to travel? Great. Find cheaper ways to do it. Drive instead of fly when you can. Go camping instead of staying in hotels. Cook your own meals instead of eating out 3 times a day. There are countless ways to travel cheaply and still have wonderful experiences. I never went on luxury holidays in my life. I traveled for business, of course. But I never felt the need to stay in 5-star hotels or fly first class or float around on some luxury cruise. Why? Because those things don't make me happier. A fancy hotel room is just a place to sleep. A first-class seat gets you to the same destination at the same time as economy. But leave my preferences aside. Let's look at the maths. Suppose someone takes 2 luxury holidays a year, spending £10,000 each time. That's £20,000 a year on trips. Over 30 years, that's £600,000 spent on holidays. Now imagine instead they choose modest, budget-friendly trips. Say they spend £5,000 a year in total on travel. The other £15,000 each year goes into investments, earning 10%. After 30 years, that money grows to somewhere around £2.4 million. That is the real cost of luxury holidays. Not the £20,000 you drop this year. The millions you never have later. And here's the funny, cheap holidays can be just as memorable as expensive ones. Often more. Because the best memories usually aren't about how much you spent. They're about who you were with and what you experienced together. The price tag doesn't determine the memory, but it absolutely determines your net worth. These 5 categories, if you eliminate them or dramatically reduce them, will save you hundreds of thousands, probably millions, over a lifetime. But here's the hard part, actually doing it. Because all of these things we've talked about look normal. Everyone around you is buying them. The culture tells you you should buy them. So when you stop, you will feel like you're missing out. You will feel, at times, like you're depriving yourself. People will judge you. They'll think you're tight. They'll wonder why you drive an older car, or live in a modest house, or don't take flashy holidays. They'll laugh at your boring furniture and your outdated phone. But you have to decide what you care about more. The approval of people who are almost certainly broke themselves, or your own financial freedom. I chose freedom a long time ago, and I have never regretted it for a single second. Because that freedom, that ability to do what I want, when I want, without worrying about money, is worth more than any car, house, gadget, or holiday could ever be. You can make the same choice. Stop buying these 5 things. Redirect that money into investments that actually compound. It won't be easy. It will require discipline. It will require you to be different from almost everyone around you. It will require you to delay gratification and think in decades, not days. But it works. It absolutely works. I've proved it. Millions of others have proved it. The secret to getting rich is not earning more and then spending like an idiot. Most high earners end up broke because they buy every status object waved in front of them. The secret is not spending money on things that don't build wealth. Stop buying these 5 things. Start investing the difference. That's the formula. That's the path. That's how you actually get rich. It sounds simple because it is simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. It takes courage to live below your means in a world where everyone else is living right at the edge or beyond it. But that courage is rewarded with something compound interest can't fully describe. Wealth that lasts. Freedom that compounds. A life lived on your own terms. It worked obscenely well for me. I suspect it might work rather well for you too. So stop feeding the things that quietly make you poor, and start feeding the assets that quietly make you free.